Rookie defensive tackle Johnny Newton needs a second foot surgery. While it's not a big deal, but also kind of a big deal. That and more on today's bonus episode of Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into this bonus episode of Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget that you can also subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you can continue this conversation with me by becoming a Locked On Commanders insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Commanders. Sign up today. And as an insider, you will get news, analysis, insight, one-on-one conversations, and bonus content delivered directly to your phone. No hashtags, no apps, no filters needed. All of it just comes straight to you via text message. Lots of cool stuff going on there. So again, become a Locked On Commanders insider by going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Commanders today. I'm David Harrison, credential member of the media covering the Washington Commanders for Commander Game Day, a part of Sports Illustrated's FanNation, here with you every Monday through Friday, along with our everydayers and everydayers. You already know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I appreciate you for coming through like you do. On today's episode, we're talking about rookie minicamp day number 2. And we got quite a few updates, including the one we're going to start with, which is that defensive tackle Johnny Newton, Jer'Zhan Johnny Newton, needs a second foot procedure. So if you go back to the pre-draft process, defensive tackle Johnny Newton, thought of as one of the top draft prospects in this year's class, the top defensive tackle on most people's boards from a pure talent standpoint, had to have a surgery on his right foot because he suffered a partial Jones fracture in his right foot while playing football for the Illinois Fighting Illini. Something that he knew about, something that his team knew about. So they went ahead and he got the procedure done in January to go ahead and resolve that issue. So whether or not that part of the medicals scared some teams away from him, causing him to slip out of the first round, whatever it was, the Washington Commanders more than happy to jump in the second round, early in the second round, and make him a part of their roster, even though they have Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen on the roster currently, still going at a talent like Johnny Newton. Dan Quinn talked about, Adam Peters talked about how they had a first round grade on him. So again, you got a first round grade on a guy. He's sitting there in the second round, you know, in a situation the Washington Commanders are in, you almost have no reason not to go ahead and take him. Well, the procedure's done. Talked to Johnny Newton the night he got drafted. He said he felt great, felt 100%, felt ready to go. During sometime between getting drafted, sometime between rookie minicamp starting, the medical team for the Washington Commanders doing a check of that right foot discovered that he had a similar issue. We don't know if it's exactly a partial Jones fracture. All we really know is it's a similar issue. He's going to need a similar procedure now on the left foot. So it's the other foot, not the right foot, not the same foot. This is a different foot. So this is a completely new injury, which in a kind of a way is a good thing. It's not a re-injury. It's not a setback. It's not an aggravation. It's a new injury. Now, it is a setback in the sense that this is your first, second round pick. If you're Adam Peters, if you're Dan Quinn. So obviously this is not what you want to have happen. But Dan Quinn also talked about if you're going to have something like this creep up and pop up, you want to have it happen in May. You don't want to have it happen in August, September, October. And certainly there's a point to that. So there's two sides of this, right? Is it a big deal? Yes and no. And I'm going to start with why it is a big deal, right? Because I want to get that kind of out of the way. First and foremost, you never want to have any of your players injured, right? Then, of course, there is the whole part of you spent your first, second round draft pick of your entire tenure as a GM, as a head coach on this guy. But then there's also the part, and this is part of the conversation that was being had when he was selected. I think by and large, most people like the selection of Johnny Newton, sees the potential there, sees the talent there. But a lot of people kind of came away and said, well, was it really something that you should have done given what you needed? Potentially an offensive tackle, a wide receiver, a tight end, whatever it is. Now, obviously, they come away with Ben Sinnott, Luke McCaffrey later on in the draft. They're happy with those guys now. But if you play the revisionist history part of this thing, if you could kind of redo it and know what you know now, would you still go ahead and draft him? So that's certainly part of the conversation. I don't think anybody, whether it's on my side, the media side of things, or on the fan side of things, should be kind of going, oh, look at this, another bad decision by the Commanders. Try not to get into the woe is me, woe is us spiraling aspect of this, because the other side of this is it's not necessarily a big deal because you do still have Daron Payne. You do still have Jonathan Allen on the roster. And then remember, this is not a 1 year race to the finish line, get it fixed, win a Super Bowl in 2024, boom or bust, all in, all or nothing, whatever cliche you want to use. project. This is a long-term thing that the Washington Commanders are trying to build here. They're trying to build a team for the future. So Johnny Newton, nobody's denying the talent and the ability and the potential there, right? So do this smart, do this the right way, go through the procedure, get it done, and make sure that when he is on the field, he's healthy and he's ready to do it, because the team wants to see him out there. Johnny Newton wants to put himself out there. Obviously, everybody's going to want to see that. But the smart thing here is that you do it the right way and you make sure that you don't rush to failure, as I like to say. And that's something that, Coach Quinn was asked on Saturday. What the timeline is, what's this look like from a procedural standpoint or recovery standpoint. So he did share with us that basically sometime next week, we don't know exactly when that is. Next week starts tomorrow, starts on Sunday. So it could be Sunday, it could be Wednesday, it could be next Saturday for all we know. But sometime next week, he's going to go in, he's going to have this procedure again, similar to the one that he had on his right foot. So this one's on his left foot, the one that's been in the boot, if you've seen the pictures floating around on social media, and then he'll go back into the recovery process. How long that recovery process is, it's really kind of hard to tell. So, again, he had this procedure on his right foot in January, got drafted end of April, told us he was 100%. If that's the similarity, then February, March, April, you're talking about 90 days to get to I'm 100%. But how long had he felt, quote unquote, 100%? We don't really know. So if it takes 90 days from, say, next week, well, then you're talking mid-August. So you're talking, into the preseason potentially. But again, I don't know if it took all that time. Like, it's not like Johnny told us, as of yesterday before I got drafted, I'm 100%. So if he was 100% end of March, then, maybe you're looking at a month and a half, 2 months recovery time, which puts you right in the midst of training camp. So again, that's another reason I don't say this is a massive deal. Obviously, you want to get as many reps as you can. You hate to miss rookie mini camp. The veterans come in next week, and you do expect pretty much 100% participation. I don't know of any player that is planning on sitting out. So you pretty much expect 100% participation for the veteran mini camps. So obviously, you like to have everybody on the field as much as possible. But for now, Johnny Newton's been there. He's getting the mental reps. He's getting the studying. He's getting the time with his teammates and doing all that stuff while they're doing the bag drills where they get everybody all hyped up. He's standing right there, hyping up his teammates and being a good teammate for his guys. So good to see that. But obviously, we all want to see him on the field. We're all very excited to see when he does get on the field. But I think the best thing, the smart thing, do this in time, do it the right way. Don't rush to failure. And I think that's what the Washington Commanders are doing. So again, some reasons certainly to not be happy about the development, but I don't think it's a massive deal. So if you're on the spiral, if you're on the swirl down the drain, please come back to us. Stay over here right now. Don't get too hot about it one way or another. But we also talked to Coach Quinn about his quarterback, Jayden Daniels, and we also got some updates on the offensive line. We'll get into that coming up next on this bonus episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're doing that thanks to our friends over at Yahoo Finance. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you by Yahoo Finance. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all your investment and retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. They're the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. This bonus episode of Locked On Commanders is also brought to you by eBay Motors, who knows that passion, drive, and patience brings home the winning trophy in sports. And it's also what brings home the winning trophy for your ride or die vehicle and keeping your ride or die vehicle alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, and they have everything you need to level it up to peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're looking for speed for your vehicle, power for your engine, style for your car, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you're always going to find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Thanks again for making Locked On Commanders your first listen, your first view today and every day. Thanks for tuning into this bonus content, bonus episode of Locked On Commanders every day. Make sure you come back tomorrow. We'll have a fresh new episode of Locked On Commanders dropping here in a little bit. Fox Sports and ESPN could be on your television all day, and if they are, you might find yourself having to turn it down a little bit when all the shouting begins. Well, if you turn on Locked On Sports today, you're going to get free 24/7 sports streaming programming made for you every day that brings you the biggest stories without the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Continuing our look at day 2 of rookie minicamp. So the first big development that happened, obviously, was the news that Johnny Newton, second-round rookie out of Illinois, defensive tackle, is going to need a second foot procedure. This one on his left foot, not on his right foot. So he's going to miss some time, going to miss some more mini camps and things like that. But I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, that he could be back for training camp, or at least during training camp in the preseason, and get some good reps before the regular season begins. So fingers crossed on that. Knock on wood that Johnny Newton, everything goes well with him. Everything seems to be going well so far for quarterback Jayden Daniels. And when we got to speak to Dan Quinn before Saturday's practice, the second practice of rookie mini camp, Coach Quinn really emphasized to us that during this rookie minicamp, what he's trying to do is really establish the standard of how they're going to practice. And I really love hearing that from Coach Quinn, because every day, if you've been around for a little while, you know I'm a big leadership guy. I'm a big standards guy. And I think what's lost in a lot of things is we kind of have this mentality in our society where it's practice, just get practice done. And sometimes we go into these practices, we go into these training sessions, whatever it is, it could be football, piano. My son's into boxing. And sometimes like everybody, right? Like, I love my job. And a lot of you probably look at me, you're like, man, you're really lucky you get to go to practices, games. And I am. I'm super fortunate, super blessed. But every job is still a job. And some days we all have that day where we get up and we're like, man, I really don't want to do this job today. And you might find it a little bit weird, but even covering football, there are days you don't necessarily want to get out of bed and do the job, but you do. And you have to put in the focus on. That's what Dan Quinn is talking about, was setting the standard of practice. It's not enough to just get out there, throw a football around, blow a whistle, honk a horn, run some clocks, run some plays. You have to get out there. There's got to be a standard of execution that you're looking for, and that standard has to be set. And that is something that I feel like was missing from Washington Commanders teams previously, is upholding those standards. Too many times you see guys loafing, see guys getting away with maybe not necessarily making the right play, not necessarily making the best play, and not necessarily doing things to a set standard. So you love hearing that from Coach Quinn, and also talking about how Jayden Daniels as a rookie quarterback is going to help establish that. He's got to learn it himself, but then also once he learns it, take it, establish it, and enforce it to his players, to his teammates. And what we heard from Coach Quinn was about Jayden Daniels and his love of football. That's something we heard from Ben Sinnett on Friday, something we heard from Luke McCaffrey on Friday. So time and time again, you're hearing all these people talk about in different ways, in different prompts, different atmospheres and conversations about how much Jayden Daniels loves playing football, loves coming out there and competing at a very high level. Talked about Jayden Daniels arriving early to the facility, getting to work early, and has the quote unquote, I'm not going to be stopped trait. And I think that is something that is incredibly important, because not everybody has that. We talk about this too, like talk about the job, right? Not everybody who plays football loves football. Believe it or not, there are actually a good amount of people. You might be surprised at how many people that really don't love football. They love the money, or they love the attention, the accolades, they love the fame, or they just don't want to do a quote unquote normal job like the rest of us have to do. So to have a quarterback out there who loves the game of football and just loves everything that goes into it, the competition, the strategy, and getting better, is incredibly important. And then something that Dan Quinn talked about on Saturday with us is something that a lot of us in the media have been talking about and praising Jayden for: the command of his teammates. We've seen him multiple times. We saw it on day 2 as well, putting players in the right situation, even talking with quarterback Sam Hartman about, hey, here's how we're going to throw this. Here's how we're going to do this. Talking with his coaches, making sure that he's in Cliff Kingsbury's ear as much as Cliff Kingsbury is in his ear, doing all those things. And Dan Quinn talked about Jayden Daniels wanting to not only be a quarterback who knows what his responsibilities are, but knowing what the other person's responsibility is. And even when we're out here, we're just throwing against air. Hey, man, you're not split wide enough. Or, hey, man, you're split too wide. Come in a little bit. That split's a little bit more reduced. Or, hey, when you're doing this motion, make sure you're coming here. Those things are important. And I remember going through tape study, and there was one film study specifically I did where, and I don't want to knock on another guy, right? But Drake May, New England Patriots quarterback now, there was a scenario where North Carolina had the ball on the goal line against an opponent, and they were missing an offensive tackle. Like they came out there literally with 4 offensive linemen on the field, and Drake May didn't realize it. So what was happening is as Drake May is snapping the ball, North Carolina is trying to run this 5th offensive lineman on the field in a goal line situation, and Drake May snaps the ball. They get penalized for illegal substitution, and they get penalized. They have to bring the ball back, and it ruins the scoring opportunity. That is the kind of thing you need your quarterback to be aware of. That's the kind of thing that Jayden Daniels is already demonstrating as a rookie in rookie minicamp, controlling his teammates, understanding. I mean, he's just cracking into the playbook. Literally, Saturday is the second day executing Cliff Kingsbury's offense and playbook, but he's already knowing where his fellow teammates are supposed to be. Now, it's one thing to do it with rookies. I want to see him do it with veterans. I was actually talking with a member of the organization about all the bad penalties that we saw the Washington Commanders suffer through a couple of years ago. And one of the penalties, obviously, that came up was the one where Terry McLaurin was lined up, checked with the ref. The ref said, move up. Terry moved up, checked with the ref. Ref signaled you're good. Then he calls a penalty on him, right? So don't want to rehash that whole thing. But again, if you're kind of looking at Jayden Daniels as something where maybe he notices that Terry or somebody else, another veteran, Zach Ertz, isn't lined up necessarily right where they need to be, want to see that continue in with the veteran, say, hey, 17, move up a little bit, or hey, 84, I don't know what number actually, I just realized Zach Ertz is wearing, but whatever numbers Zach Ertz is wearing, hey, Zach, move up, or hey, you need to split out more, you need to come in, whatever it is. Want to see Jayden Daniels continue that command of his teammates and control of the playbook, the organization, the offensive formations when the veterans come in. So really good stuff from Jayden Daniels on day 2. I'm going to tweet it. I haven't tweeted it out yet. I'm going to tweet it. I'm going to put it on Instagram as well. D Harrison 82 on both, I believe. So if you want to see it, but there's a really cool drill that the quarterbacks were doing where they're working on their mobility, working on their shuffling, stepping back and forth, and then firing the ball. Jayden Daniels, a lot of good accuracy on the move. Sam Hartman, too, very accurate on the move in the same drill as well. So impressive stuff from the quarterbacks on day 2. We also got some updates on the offensive line that I know a lot of my insiders have been asking about. So we'll talk about that here next on today's bonus episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's bonus episode of Locked On Commanders, and this next segment is brought to us by our sponsor, BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off of our chest, but sometimes we feel like the big things are the most important, and the small things that maybe shouldn't bother us, or at least we feel like shouldn't bother us, but do, are kind of embarrassing. We don't really want to talk about them, but it is important to let out all those things that bother you, whether they're big, whether they're small, whether they're obvious and everybody would have a problem with it, or whether they're small and maybe it only bothers you. It's okay. If it bothers you, it's significant enough to get it off your chest and get it out to someone who maybe is unbiased in your life and can give you an outsider's point of view, help you gain some perspective or hone in your perspective of what it is that's going on, because those things fester, they become bigger, and then they eventually come out. They explode, sometimes in bad behavior, sometimes in bad relationships with other people. And it's important to make sure you get all those things taken care of. Therapy can help you with that. Therapy can be different for everyone. So maybe that's what you need. Maybe you need something different. Most of us have bigger problems than what's going on with our sports team. But if what's going on with your sports team really drives your persona and your emotions, having somebody to talk about that stuff with can really help you. Maybe it's traffic, maybe it's a work thing, maybe it's a relationship thing. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. So visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon and you'll get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Wrapping up this bonus episode of Locked On Commanders. Thanks again for making Locked On Commanders your first listen, your first view today and every day. Thanks for checking out this bonus episode following day 2 of Washington Commanders rookie minicamp. Don't expect the Washington Commanders to add any more players to the offensive line. Dan Quinn was asked about the offensive line, about whether or not they were going to be adding any players or looking to add any more players. Dan Quinn didn't come out right out and say, like, no, we're not adding more people. But the way that he answered the question, what he had to say, definitely hinted at that they were not going to be adding to the group. So let me read this for you. I just got to find it here in the transcript. Coach Quinn said, quote, "I think what you're going to find through us, like we're always going to push it on the competition side." And so that's not just at tackle. So like that's everywhere that we'll go. And it's in training camp. It's at the 53. It's during the season. So if you keep that thought of like just relentlessly going after it to say, can this be better? Can this be better? And develop the guys here, That's what we're looking for, and we won't back off of that, end quote. So basically was asked, are you looking to add a tackle, add offensive lineman? And Dan Quinn didn't answer that question. He said, instead, we're really focused on developing and competing with who we have, which basically tells you they're not looking to add to the offensive line. At least they're not going to publicly say that they're looking to add to the offensive line. That's a question that a lot of insiders have been asking about. Dan Quinn was also asked specifically about his confidence in Cornelius Lucas, if he needs to step in, kind of, what have you seen from his limited tape, because hasn't had a lot of starts. And Dan kind of talked about how it's not important how many starts he's had. They've watched the tape that they do have on him, and they like what they've seen in him as well. Of course, there's also rookie Brandon Coleman, who for my money is probably your leading candidate to be your starting left tackle right now. And I asked Brandon and I asked Coach Quinn, with such a lack of physicality right now, there's no hitting allowed. There's no one-on-one offensive line, defensive line drills allowed. It's all just, one lineman holding a pad or a coach holding a pad against an offensive lineman. That's all you're allowed to do. What is the main focus right now? And Dan Quinn, Brandon Coleman both talked about getting the technique right, understanding not just foot placement, hand placement, but how do I move with this offensive line check? When Jayden Daniels makes this blocking shift, how do I move there? How do I do this? How do I go over to this side? How does Coach Bobby Johnson want me to move and get out in the offense? And Brandon Coleman had a lot of good things to say about both Coach Bobby Johnson and Cliff Kingsbury and his experience right now. And then finally, Braden Daniels. A lot of people are kind of saying, hey, don't forget Braden Daniels in this left tackle starting position conversation. Braden Daniels got injured early last year, was put on IR, not eligible for rookie minicamp. So that's why he wasn't there. Some people were expecting to see him there. But the bottom line is there are specific rules for who can attend rookie minicamp, who can't attend rookie minicamp. If you have 1 year or more of accrued time served in the NFL, you're not allowed to attend. Basically, because Braden Daniels was on injured reserve, that still accrues a year of NFL service for him. Therefore, he's not eligible. Same thing with Ricky Stromberg, because he played a little bit and then he was put on IR, not allowed to play in the rookie minicamp. But guys like Bryson Tremaine, Casimir Allen spent the entire season on practice squad. So it's kind of like if you're on the active roster or if you're on injured reserve, you're accruing a year of time. If you're on practice squad, you're not accruing a year of time. So that's basically the difference, is guys like Kaz Allen, Mason Brooks, Bryson Tremaine, Nick Whiteside, the cornerback, they all spent the year on practice squad. So they didn't accrue a year. Therefore, they can participate in the rookie minicamp. But Braden Daniels, Ricky Stromberg as well, both of those guys, well, Ricky played in the regular season, right? But also spent time on IR. Braden Daniels spent on IR, was not eligible to play. That's why he's not there. Dan Quinn said they were eligible, or Braden Daniels specifically was eligible, would probably be here. Certainly, it's not a matter of not wanting him there or Braden not wanting to be there. He's simply not eligible. So it wraps up some of our updates from rookie minicamp. Come back tomorrow. We'll have another episode. We're going to talk about some updates on the RFK Stadium site and some other things concerning the Washington Commanders. In the meantime, if you've got questions or comments, throw them down in the YouTube comment section or text me directly by becoming a Locked On Commanders insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. Don't forget to check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 live streaming sports channel on YouTube. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, every day. Thanks for coming through like you do. Until we speak again, if you're out and about, please be safe, be kind. We'll see you next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.